Hi everyone, I'm Rockin Robin from CookingMexicanRecipes.com. Now today's recipe, I'm going to be making a roasted pork tenderloin with a nice fresh garlic rosemary rub. We're going to put it all into one dish. We're going to add some potatoes and some white wine, and it's going to be delicious. So let's go over our ingredients for the recipe. But before I start with that, I want to go over one thing you got to have in order to be successful with this recipe. And that is a meat thermometer. You have to have either one like this, where we stick it into the meat and leave it in the whole time, or I just recently got this one. This is an instant read thermometer. Has a stainless steel probe. We stick it in when we think it's done, and we leave it in for like 8 seconds, and it tells us the temperature. Now the reason this is so important is that it is so easy to dry out a pork tenderloin. So we'll start with that. Make sure you get one of those before you even attempt this one. Okay, so now we'll go into our ingredients. We're going to need some white wine. Here I've got some Savignon Blanc. I'm going to use maybe a half a cup of that. We'll also need some olive oil, some salt and pepper. And for this recipe, I'm going to throw in a few potatoes. Here I've got some gold potatoes. And over here we have some onions. I got about 1/4 of an onion. It's just sliced up thin. We'll need some, I like to use fresh rosemary. I've got about 6 or 7 sprigs here. We'll be peeling these off and chopping them up. And I've got about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic will work. And of course our centerpiece here is our pork tenderloin. This one's about 1.5 pounds, and I'm only cooking 1 tonight, but you can certainly cook 2. So the first thing we want to do is we want to start with our rosemary garlic rub. So I've got my cloves here, and I've got a garlic press. So I'm going to go ahead and put my garlic in there, and I'm going to press it into a bowl. So then you just cut it off with your knife, and then add the rest of your cloves right on top. Some of this stuff comes out like that, and just put it back in there. All right. Stick in another clove, and we'll just put everything in our bowl. Okay, so now that we've got our garlic in the bowl, we're going to do our rosemary. So you take your fresh rosemary, and I'm just going to peel the little leaves off of the stem. I don't want to use the big stem. I just want the leaves because that's where all the oils and all the flavor is. So it just takes a few minutes, and I'm going to do several stems. I'll probably do 4 or 5. So you can kind of just take your hand and just brush over like that, and they come off. It's pretty easy. Okay, so now that I've got all the leaves off, we're going to start chopping this up. It'll just take a minute or two. You just want to go through it and get the pieces nice and small. Okay. So this is about how fine we want it to be, you can see. And now we'll just add it to our garlic. Okay, so now that I've got the rosemary and the garlic in the bowl together, we're going to add just a little bit of olive oil. I'm just going to put a little drop in there, and we're going to mix it all together and make like a little paste. And you can add, a little more olive oil if you need to. And then we're going to rub this all over our roast. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sliced onions that I previously cut up, and I'm just going to layer them in the bottom, pretty much under where the roast is going to be. Lay the roast on top, and I patted it nice and dry, and I can make a few slits in it just across the top. This will just help me get some of that paste inside the roast, and then the rest will go just around it. So I'm going to take the paste, and I'm going to rub it all over the roast like this. Okay. Really smell that garlic. We're just going to smear it all around. You could take this, add more olive oil if you wanted to marinate this overnight. That would be a great thing too. You just add more olive oil to the paste, put it in a bag, a Ziploc bag, and just let it stay overnight, and all these flavors will infuse into the meat and be wonderful. But I didn't have time today, so we're just going to do it real quick like this, and it turns out really good. Put a little bit on the sides and around the bottom if you can get it there. It's a little bit messy, but it's easy enough to do. Okay. Now we're going to cut up our potatoes, we'll put them on the side, and we'll be ready to put this in the oven. So now we're ready to go ahead and slice up our potatoes. So I just want to cut these small enough because this roast is only going to be in the oven for a little over an hour. And so I want to keep them, you know, about this size so that they will cook up pretty easily. Now what we want to do is take these potatoes. First I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in the bottom of the pan because this cut of meat is pretty lean and there's not a lot of fat. So I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of oil in there at the bottom. And then I'm going to add the potatoes. I'm just going to place them around the roast. Now remember, if you need 2 pieces, 2 pork loins, you know, you certainly can do that. You can add 2 to your dish and leave the potatoes out, for example, and do those separately. So it's just up to you and how big your guest list is. All right, so I've got the potatoes in there. I'm going to add some wine to this. It really makes a nice flavor. So I'm going to pour, you know, we talked about, I'm going to pour in about a half a cup of wine. And by the way, I do have my oven preheating to 400 degrees. So pretty soon that should be ringing to let me know that it's ready. And I'm going to put some salt all over. And we'll do a little pepper. And now I'm going to add a little bit more rosemary to the potatoes because they really, you know, it really tastes good when it's in there. And you can just tear off pieces like this and just toss it in. It adds to the flavor. Just sprinkle it around. And now we're ready to cook this in the oven. And we're going to check it in about 30 minutes and we'll test the temperature. Okay, so our roast has been in here for about 35 to 40 minutes and I want to do a quick test on the temperature. So I'm going to go ahead and start this, stick it in, and watch the thermometer. It takes about, I don't know, about 8 minutes. I'm sorry, 8 seconds. So I want to take this out at about 155. Still climbing a little bit. So I think the temperature is about 146. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back in for just another 5 minutes. And we'll test it again. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take the roast out. It's up into its right temperature. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place the roast into this other dish for a moment to cool off and rest. I'm going to put the potatoes back in the oven while the roast is resting. All right, so I just pulled the potatoes out of the oven. They've been cooking a little longer while the roast has been resting. And so now it's time. I've let that rest for about 10 minutes so the juices can redistribute and it'll stay nice and juicy. So we're going to go ahead and slice it up, put it on the plate. Here we go. All right, we got that. And then for our potatoes, you can see here, got little onions in there with that. Doesn't that look great? I mean, it really smells good. And it makes a wonderful meal. Look at that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give this a little quick taste here. It looks really good. Yummy. Try a little potato. You can taste that rosemary, the garlic, the wine, everything. It's really good. I hope you guys will try this recipe. I think you'll really enjoy it. Be sure and subscribe to my channel by clicking that button right up there and leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.